Hello, my radiant queens. Welcome back to Liu's Storytime, your safe space for ancient drama, karmic justice, and women reclaiming their power against all odds. Today, we have a story that made me want to rage scream into a pillow, and then immediately open a bottle of champagne to celebrate. We are talking about a virtuous wife who played the long game for 15 years against a husband who treated her like furniture. Get your snacks ready, because this is the ultimate revenge glow-up. For 15 years, I've been Lady Who with quite a reputation for virtue and virtue. Watching Song Zhuo drink down the last bowl of sterilization medicine, I contentedly brought up divorce. He mocked me. "Zhao, you're just a peasant girl. Without me, you'll only drift about in misery your whole life." So he punished me to go to Qingxi Temple for 10 days of spiritual cultivation. Song Zhuo always made me submit without lifting a finger. Looking at his back as he left with a flick of his sleeves, I gently touched the divorce papers in my sleeve. On them, the Marquis Manor seal had already been stamped. From now on, the sky is high and the waters long, each to our own spring. The day I brought up divorce happened to be when the Yingyuan Marquis Manor was at its most glorious. Song Zhuo had just received the iron certificate with gold script. Our son Song Yan had been selected as the Crown Prince's study companion. The winding stream banquet I'd arranged for Imperial concubine Liang was about to begin as well. Song Zhuo's robe hems flowed like clouds as he entered the room, riding the spring breeze of success. As usual, I served him the medicinal tea I'd personally prepared. He slowly drank it all and frowned, his jade-like fingers setting down the celadon bowl. Today's medicine seems exceptionally bitter. This was the last bowl of sterilization medicine in 7 years, so the potency was a bit stronger. With the medicinal effects accumulated over 7 years, Song Zhuo was sterile for life. I could also leave with peace of mind. Okay, pause everything. Did you catch that? For 7 years she has been serving him daily medicinal tea that she made with her own hands, letting him believe it was a sign of her devotion. In reality, she was ensuring he could never replace her son with an heir from one of his many mistresses. This level of calculation is terrifying and absolutely brilliant. He thought he was drinking to his health. He was actually drinking his own biological dead end. It is dark, it is cold. And honestly, after he treated her like a servant for a decade, it feels like poetic justice. She didn't just leave him. She left him with no future. I said, "Song Zhuo, let's divorce." Song Zhuo's brows and eyes were as distant as far-off mountains, lightly falling upon me. Don't tell me you think that just because the new female household regulations were issued, you can make it on your own out there. Some time ago, the emperor, to expand tax revenue, permitted the establishment of female households in the future. Women can establish their own households and pay taxes, without having to depend on their fathers, husbands, or sons. I calmly met his gaze. Yes. He sat upright before me, lightly tapping his fingers on the desk, smiling. Apart from having tea and hosting banquets with those women, you can't even sing a tune like Liu. How will you support yourself, and how will you pay your own taxes? His clear and pleasant voice was like a late snowfall, freezing my entire body with frost. Lady Zhao, without me, you have nothing. You'll only live a life of wandering and displacement. Have you forgotten when you couldn't eat your fill? Forgotten having no home? Forgotten being driven out of the manor 7 years ago? How dare I forget? My coughing illness was contracted on that snowy night. My son Song Yan was also forcibly sent to the old lady's side at that time. Zhuo unhurriedly rubbed his white jade thumb ring, waiting for me to soften and yield to him as usual. I lowered my eyes without speaking. He gathered his robe and stood up, leisurely walking away at a measured pace. I didn't want to hold it against you for driving Liu away, but bringing up divorce again today is truly overstepping bounds. He glanced slightly at me, his voice very faint and cold. "Madam, pack up. Tomorrow go to Qingxi Temple for 10 days of spiritual cultivation. It should clear your mind and help you think things through." I laughed. Song Zhuo was always like this. With his lofty elegance, he disciplined me without lifting a finger. Watching his graceful departing figure, I gently touched the divorce papers in my sleeve. On them, the manor seal had long been stamped. I will never forget that New Year's Eve 7 years ago. The night sky stretched endlessly, with soft snow falling everywhere. Big red lanterns hung high at the gate of the Marquise's manor, and brilliant fireworks bloomed overhead, while I stood alone, barefoot in the snow before the manor gate, my nightgown, thin as a cicada's wing, filled with cold wind, shivering and aching from the cold. I had no silver for an inn, no travel permit to leave the city, and as a woman I couldn't establish my own household. I could only let the cold ravage my lungs, watching helplessly as my son was taken away. Yet when people in the capital spoke of me, they'd first say how fortunate I was, a mere peasant girl who became the Marquise's wife by leveraging a debt of gratitude. Then they'd call me virtuous, enduring everything patiently, knowing when to advance or retreat, shrewd and capable. I, this seemingly glorious Marquise's wife, lived worse than the favored senior maids in the manor. For 15 years, I rose at the hour of the tiger and slept at the hour of the pig, from ancestral rites of the Marquise's household to daily medicinal teas. Everything required my personal attention. I navigated skillfully among the noblewomen, and won the favor of noble consort Liang. I was neither jealous nor envious. The dozen or so concubines in the rear courtyard were all well arranged. Even so, the pearl hairpins, fine silks, and decorative items bestowed upon me by nobility were all locked away in the storeroom by my mother-in-law, Lady Li. I never had spare money in my hands, and even the servants rarely showed me respect. Lady Li would often scold me in public, putting on airs of strict household management. Most importantly, I was separated from my son Songyan. Everyone says Song Zhuo is refined and elegant, and the Lai family is tolerant, never having mistreated me. But the torment I endured came in these subtle, intricate, day-after-day trivial matters. They wore down my temperament and exhausted my will. The lamp wick crackled. In the bronze mirror, a face still fairly beautiful at 30, with gold earrings swaying by my cheeks in the flickering candlelight. I smiled. Tears suddenly fell from my eyes, yet my gaze remained calm, focused, and sharp. But it no longer matters. That divorce agreement has already been sent to the government office by someone. Nanny Li has been waiting for me by the carriage at the side gate since early on. She snatched the money pouch from Yur's waist, weighed it in her hand. "Madam, you don't need to bring so much silver. After 15 years, I've long grown accustomed to this." Nanny Li snorted proudly through her nose. "This old servant saw through you long ago. You're a ruthless one, still holding a grudge about how the Marquis drove you out 7 years ago. Which is why you drove Liu away, isn't it? But let me tell you, our cousin Miss Li, now concubine Chinger, is no ordinary person. The Fu physician examined her last night, and she is with child." "With child?" I asked back in surprise. Nanny Li smiled until her face was full of wrinkles. "That is right. So you just focus on praying and eating vegetarian for the Marquis Manor's future heir, and help our old madam settle the accounts for those loans she gave out." I was stunned for a moment, then suddenly gave Nanny Li a graceful smile. "Nanny is right. Then I'll trouble you to take good care of concubine Li with this money. 7 years of infertility medicine. There is no way such an oversight could happen. Who would have thought? Just as we're about to separate, there'd still be a good show to watch." I helped Yur onto the carriage at that moment. We happened to run into Song Yan heading into the palace on horseback. The young man in light blue riding attire, his handsome face revealing a maturity that didn't match his age. He gently pulled the reins and called out indifferently, "Mother." His gaze swept over my plain dress without lingering. Then he rode off. The spring breeze billowed the young man's robe, swift as a shooting star. Suddenly remembered that child who always loved to cling to me, throwing tantrums and begging for sweets. Ever since he was taken to the old lady's quarters at age 7, he never smiled at me again. The morning light came at just the right moment, falling into my eyes. My vision gradually blurred. The young master had no choice. Yur consoled softly. I closed my eyes without speaking. In this world there is no such thing as having no choice. It is just choices made after weighing the pros and cons. Just like when Song Zhuo threatened to die if he couldn't marry me. So sincere, treating me like a precious pearl. But later, didn't that pearl turn into a fisheye? Everyone believed that back then, I leveraged a debt of gratitude to marry into the Marquise's household. What is laughable is that Song Zhuo risked his life insisting on marrying me. I first met him in the dead of winter. Song Zhuo lay barely alive in my snow-covered medicinal garden. Back then, the Yingyuan Marquis household fled south to escape danger while saving the late emperor. Back then, I planned to take the whole family to see the King of Hell come spring, and only saved him to accumulate merit for the underworld. Song Zhuo couldn't stomach the chaff porridge I fed him and spat it out. I immediately slapped him across the face. Your life belongs to me, and you still dare to waste my food." His lacquered pupils reddened, and through his lips squeezed a sentence. "Song Juo, oh Song Juo, to fall to this state." That day the sky hung heavy, threatening snow. Song Juo's face was like cold jade, his body like bamboo and pine, his expression both miserably beautiful and broken. In the end, I still softened my voice to persuade. "What is so difficult about chaff? Come spring, I'm going to become a concubine. This mouthful of chaff you look down on is still bought with my money." Song Juo's lashes trembled. He remained silent for a long time. Long enough for snow to fall outside the window. Only then did his bony hand take the bowl and chew down the chaff bite by bite. Later in deep winter, when medicinal herbs were hard to keep alive, Father had me stay in the thatched hut in the herb garden to watch over them. Every time I finished tending the herbs with hands full of chilblains, Song Juo would apply medicine for me. Then by the stove fire, he'd read to me from the poetry books my younger brother didn't want, teaching me to recognize and write characters before my marriage. I carefully ground into powder the poisonous herbs I'd been saving for a long time, planning to simmer them into the pot of brown sugar water Mother was making to celebrate my impending marriage. I wanted the king of hell to settle the debt of gratitude for our family. I refused to be the only one who was unfortunate, but Song Juo took me and fled. He traded his ancestral jade pendant for provisions and horses. "Ah Ying, I'm taking you away. I'll take you to see the mid-spring of Jiangnan. I'll let you be a free person." That day, the frost on the mountain clearly hadn't faded yet, but in the brilliant morning light, I saw distant mountains and clouds stretching out, spring warmth and flowers blooming. Later, when the new emperor ascended the throne, the Yingyuan marquise's family was exonerated. Lady Li had people forcibly drag me away. Song Juo was so anxious his eyes nearly split. He drew his blade and pressed it to his own neck. Lady Li shouted, "You're the heir of a marquis manor. Do you truly want to marry a village woman?" "Mother, Zhao Ying is my wife." Song Juo's face turned pale, yet he smiled gently at me. "I said I'd let you be free." Tears instantly streamed down. I was a burden to father and mother, tuition fees for little brother's future. Only Song Juo treated me as a person, treasured and cherished me. He planted a spring in my lonely, cold life, spring grass luxuriant, growing toward the sun. In this life, I wished to love him as I would love a deity. But later, that wonderful Song Juo became an ordinary husband of this world. He made me live in the four walls of the Marquis Manor for 15 years. No longer calling me Ah Ying, he said, "Lady Zhao, without me, you have nothing. You'd only drift about in hardship all your life." Granny Li's daughter Qingru accompanied me to Qingxi Temple. She deliberately instructed the novice monk, "Madam must worship Buddha with a sincere heart. No need to be too extravagant." In other words, give me the worst room and the worst food. I've long grown accustomed to such dignified lessons. Song Juo prided himself on being refined and gentle, never scolding or physically punishing anyone. What he loved most was using trivial matters to teach me to be obedient and admit my mistakes. The young novice monk led us into a courtyard that looked dilapidated from the outside. Pushing open the door, it was brightly lit inside. Gold-plated candlesticks, Nanmu wood tables and chairs, brocade quilts, everything was provided. Early spring still carried some chill. On the Imperial concubine's couch was even a carved hand warmer, giving off heat. Qingru hurriedly said, "Master, did you make a mistake? Our madam is here for spiritual retreat. How could she stay in such fine quarters? Master, please quickly change it to the usual room." The novice only kept his face lowered without answering. I gave a look. Yer then pinched her mouth and dragged her into the side room. Crying sounds rang out from time to time in the small courtyard. Yer had been serving by my side since 7 years ago, and I had the guards teach her martial arts. Ordinary servants and maids were no match for her, let alone a green little maid. Since we're going to divorce anyway, I don't want to endure it anymore. The novice bowed and left, closing the door. All these years I've come to the temple on behalf of the Marquis Manor to make offerings, and every time I accompanied noble consort Liang here, the merit accumulated was enough to regale the golden Buddha statue. With just a few words to the abbot, he would know what to do. Taking the hot water bottle, I lazily leaned back onto the couch, and the lung pain caused by that drafty carriage earlier suddenly eased. The scent of sandalwood filled my nostrils. I'll just stay peacefully at the temple and wait for the divorce from the Marquise's manor to be submitted by the prefecture office for His Majesty's approval. 15 years of being criticized and tormented will finally come to an end. I woke up in the bright midday sun, feeling refreshed all over. In all these years at the Yingyuan Marquise's manor, I've been spinning like a top without rest. I deliberately pinned on a jeweled hairpin with 8 treasures, then went to the small Buddhist hall to have tea with Madame He, the wife of Duke Ningguo, who came to worship. It is called having tea, but it is really just doing some business for Imperial Consort Liang. The Liang family of Quizhou has extensive business ventures, and in recent years has made extraordinary profits from medicinal herbs during the plague. But the Imperial Consort is the Emperor's wife, and the Liang family of Quizhou are imperial relatives, so I can only use the name of Yingyuan Marquise's manor to conduct business privately. It both helps the Imperial Consort avoid trouble and makes money for myself. When Madame He saw the jeweled hairpin with 8 treasures in my hair, she became enviously sarcastic. Even though Madame comes from a peasant background and isn't much younger than me, the Marquise is willing to give you such a fine hairpin. It is rare to see coral this large. At the mention of Song Zhuo, my heart still rippled. I smiled gracefully. Madame He, I helped the Marquis earn some money, so the Marquis rewarded me with it. The fine lines at the corners of Madame He's eyes spread open. I pushed the contract in front of her and said, "Red sage root to be collected next month, 100,000 gold. Soon at the Imperial Consort's winding stream banquet, you and the Duke can sit right beside His Majesty." Madame He immediately sent someone to fetch the seal and stamp, and issued a banknote. The Duke of Ningguo's influence has been weak for years. Now being able to show face before the Emperor is truly a rare opportunity. After Madame He left, Yor covered her mouth and giggled. "Mistress, you really can hold back. You didn't even mention that you bought those pearl hairpins yourself." I smiled. Madame He loves to compete most. Getting to her sore spot is the best way to make this work. From being scorned by all the noblewomen in the capital to being flattered, only I know what I've paid, took 10% from the banknote, and sent the rest by fast horse to Liang's bank. That night, I was working the abacus beads, checking banknotes and property deeds. Just then Yor pushed the door open, and we spoke in unison. The Marquis Manor sent word, the concubine is newly with child. Madame must copy scriptures 100 times to pray for blessings. Clear porridge and water in the temple will suffice. Now we have 10,000 taels. Good days are ahead. We stared at each other for quite a while, then burst out laughing. Song Zhuo was wrong. If I can have a place beside the Imperial Consort, how could I not pave my escape route? Idled for 5 days. Today the wind is gentle and the sun bright. The sky clear as if washed, yet Song Zhuo came. He wore a snow-blue long robe, standing tall before me like a green bamboo after snow, sharp and noble. Seeing me, a flash of amazement swept through his icy eyes. I wasn't dressed as a noble family's wife. A jade hairpin holding up my hair, lightly draped in a flowing water-blue patterned skirt, simple and elegant for ease of movement. Song Zhuo rarely showed a hint of gentle smile. "Did you dress with such refined elegance knowing I would come? It is quite different from your usual dignified manner, somewhat reminiscent of the old days in the medicine garden." I didn't answer. Song Zhuo's smile vanished instantly as he shook the scripture in his hand. "It has already been 15 years. So how is your calligraphy still so unrefined?" I glanced at him indifferently. These were all copied by Qingru day and night, so indeed they were lacking. But my calligraphy was taught by his own hand, yet he no longer remembers. Seeing my cold expression, Song Zhuo frowned slightly. "You need not concern yourself with the winding stream banquet in 5 days. The Imperial Concubine's decree was issued to the Yingyuan Marquis Manor, so let Qing'er handle it and show her face before His Majesty." He half lowered his eyelids, his voice clear and resonant. "You must understand. Without me, you have nothing." I looked up at him, the earrings by my cheeks swaying gently. So being sent to Qingxi Temple was the first step. Stripping away that little bit of authority I had was the second step. Song Zhuo never revealed his hand, piling on pressure, layer by layer, wanting me to submit completely. In his eyes, I was utterly useless, except for flattering the Imperial concubine at banquets. "I turned to leave," Song Zhuo said softly. "Lady Zhao, without my favoritism, do you know what situation you'd be in? Li Qing'er is mother's noble concubine from the Li clan of Yuzhou. If she bears a son, Mother will definitely make me divorce you. And if her son becomes the legitimate heir, he will threaten Songyan's position. Legitimate heir? He can never have children again. So where would a legitimate heir come from? I faced the bright spring sunshine and gave him a charming smile. Song Juo's cold gaze trembled slightly, as if somewhat pleased, a smile slowly surfacing at the corners of his lips. You know your mistake now. This look is more like your lively self from before. I couldn't hear a word of his self-absorbed reminiscing about the past. I just looked at Song Juo as if watching a joke, then turned and left. Song Juo's voice came coldly from behind. Zhao Shi, do you really want to have nothing? I shut the door coldly and decisively in the room. Yar was busying herself at the yellow pearwood desk. On the desk were arranged travel documents, stacks of property deeds, land deeds, and banknotes. How could I have nothing? Just waiting for that divorce paper. And I'll be head of my own household. I'll have land, money, and backing. My respect and love for Song Juo turned to ash in the 8th year after marrying into the Marquis household. Before that, I was attentive and devoted, and willing to endure it all. Li Shi gave me the nominal title of a distant cousin to marry into the Marquis household, but my true identity was gossip that every noble in the capital knew about. I moved into the Marquis household, carefully learning all the rules step by step, contentedly revolving around Song Juo. Song Juo was good to me. He held my hand and led me through the Marquis manor's paths over and over again, often advising mother-in-law not to be too harsh, and patiently taught me proper etiquette. But as we mingled more with aristocratic families in the Imperial Palace, Song Juo returned to his original self, an elegant, upright, cautious and reserved nobleman from a distinguished family. His gaze toward me gradually became scrutinizing, often showing dissatisfaction. At the first mid-autumn palace banquet, Imperial concubine Liang specifically called me out to receive a reward. My face flushed red as I stepped out from among the ladies, nearly tripping hastily performing a curtsy, drawing stifled giggles from all the wives and young ladies in attendance. In Song Juo's eyes as he looked at me, the dissatisfaction finally turned into deep disgust. By marrying me in the first place, Song Juo had already lost the family support that comes with a strategic marriage alliance. My inability to present myself properly made him even more of a laughingstock among the aristocratic families. That night, Song Juo walked ahead of me with extremely quick steps, his smoke blue official robe fluttering wildly, the jade ornaments at his waist clinking loudly. On the palace path paved with bluestone slabs, octagonal palace lanterns shone like countless stars, illuminating his figure as it moved farther and farther away. No matter how I hurried or called out, he never once turned back to look at me. It felt as if there was a wall between him and me. I finally understood why storytellers only tell tales up to when lovers become married. Once married, most of the time it is no longer about love. The bluestone path that night was so long, so very long, so long that by the time I reached the end, even my tears had dried up. Coming from the countryside, I always thought about things simply and straightforwardly. As long as I do well as the Marquis's wife, Song Juo will be satisfied with me. I eagerly put on a smile and tried to ingratiate myself with Lady Li. I begged her to teach me etiquette, begged her to hire teachers to teach me reading and writing, begged her to take me to socialize with the noble ladies of the capital. I read and practiced calligraphy day and night, straining my eyes by candlelight. When Lady Li fell ill, I stayed in the side room ready to attend to her needs at any moment. I went to great lengths to have someone chase and beat the Duke of Ningguo's mistress, just so I could accompany Lady He to the Imperial Consort's chrysanthemum viewing banquet. Hearing that the Imperial Consort's daughter needed medicinal cuisine for her health, I personally made medicinal dishes every day, just to win a bit of the princess's favor. During those years, I never dared to slack off for a single day. Even when noble families sent concubines, I endured the suffocating pain in my heart and arranged for them properly in the Marquise's estate, because my mother-in-law said that a lady of a noble family must have the capacity to tolerate others and understand social etiquette. Perhaps this is the rule of those above others. I didn't understand, but I learned. Gradually, I finally accumulated some good reputation. One day, I brought the hairpin bestowed by noble consort Liang to Song Juo, but Song Juo asked, "Lady Zhao, don't you think it is a bit like an ugly person imitating a beauty when you learn to be a noble family's wife and curry favor all the way to the Imperial Consort?" I hadn't learned the phrase, an ugly person imitating a beauty yet, but it sounded very refined, I said with a smile. Sung Lang, I just want to help you. He let out a soft laugh. Thinking back now, that must have been a laugh full of contempt to the bone. In the 8th year, I helped the Imperial Consort arrange banquets and palace affairs, stirring up trouble among the noble ladies. Though I couldn't compare to those women from prestigious families, I still had some reputation among the aristocratic circles. The concubines Song Zhuo doted on changed one after another. He no longer coaxed me with that line. They can't compare to what we've been through together. The day he was promoted to the 5th rank, I specially wore my cloud-shaped shoulder ornament and adorned myself with pearls and jade, carrying Song Yan to joyfully greet him at the manor entrance. Seeing him arrive, I said with a beaming smile, the Imperial Consort mentioned a few days ago that His Majesty had made a decree regarding my husband's position, and it turned out to be true. How wonderful. Song Zhuo glanced over with the imposing air of someone in a superior position. In the refined smile on his lips was thick, indelible mockery. You don't actually think this promotion came from Imperial Consort Liang's recommendation, do you? The Marquis of Yingyuan's manor can support the Liang family of Kuizhou, but has nothing to do with you. I instinctively covered Song Yan's ears. The innocent Song Yan looked at me in confusion. Song Zhuo's voice was chillingly cold. Why must you become as smooth, compliant, and affected as all the other women in the capital? My heart suddenly tightened with pain. I could only woodenly watch him leave, motionless, otherwise tears would fall in an undignified manner. After all these years, haven't I done well enough, mother? Song Yan looked at me with wide eyes, his small hand brushing away the tears at the corner of my eye. I smiled at him. It doesn't matter. Song Zhuo and I were born worlds apart. It is normal for him to be dissatisfied. As long as he treats me like a human being and lets me properly raise Song Yan, that is enough. Later, I punished concubine Liu, and Song Zhuo drove me out of the Marquise's manor. New Year's Eve in the depths of the 12th lunar month's winter, I stood barefoot in front of the gate, with deep accumulated snow, wearing sleeping clothes as thin as cicada wings. The capital's winter is very cold, and the winter night is even colder, like a knife. Inside the Marquise's manor, there were faint sounds of noisy laughter. The official road was completely empty, with only the vast, endless night remaining. I stood there at a loss. Where could I go? I couldn't go anywhere. I had no maternal family to rely on, no silver to stay at an inn, and no travel permit to leave the city. In Deisheng, women couldn't establish their own households either. My face went numb from the wind, and my whole body shook like a sieve. With each breath, the cold wind poured back into my lungs, causing waves of stabbing pain. Bang! A huge sound. Brilliant and gorgeous fireworks burst from the Marquise's manor into the night sky, bright as daylight, dazzling as a rainbow. I remember my teacher saying this was trees of fire and silver flowers in an endless night. Fireworks dancing to welcome the new year. The dazzling fireworks, the brand new year, and my trembling body, tears flowing freely. The so-called glory and wealth of the Marquis Yingyuan's manor, the so-called Song Zhuo who would take me to see the world. In the end, it was all just a pipe dream. I'm merely a tiny firefly in this vast world, a single flickering light, alone and solitary, with no one to rely on. Deep into the night, soft snow rustles down. The manor gate finally opened. Song Zhuo wore his fox fur loosely, his cheeks flushed with a light blush from the wine, his whole body exuding the languid air of someone who'd been drinking on New Year's Eve. Several maids crowded around him, some holding warming pads for him, others holding lanterns, creating quite a lively scene, compared to me, curled up powerlessly in the corner, worlds apart. A hint of smugness floated in Song Zhuo's eyes, yet his voice was as gentle as water. Lady Zhao, if you're obedient, you'll be the Marquise's wife, and you can live a life of wealth and glory. That patch of lush spring grass in my heart had finally withered into ash. I trembled as I steadied myself against the wall and stood up. He slightly raised his brows. Since you're so reckless, Song Yan would be better off raised at mother's side. From the moment Song Yan tumbled out of my belly, every bite of food he ate, every word he learned to speak, every illness he suffered, I was there, but now he is to be raised by Lady Li. Yet apart from my lips and teeth chattering loudly, and the heavy ache throughout my body, I couldn't make a sound. In the end, I staggered after him. Song Zhuo finally nodded with satisfaction. He was pleased with my obedience, pleased with how I revered him like a god. I laughed. What god? Song Zhuo is just a callous, arrogant, despicable, and mediocre man. To him, I am the Zhao family, a wife, an object. He hasn't called my name in years, nor has he ever seen me as a person. It is okay. It is okay. I, Zhao Ying, am willing to accept my losses. Lady Li came to the temple to see me. Her ornate dress trailing, she circled around me, sizing me up. After all, you're from a vulgar background, your body is robust, eating only vegetables and fasting, yet your complexion is still this rosy, she said smugly and imperiously. My son is magnanimous. The Marquis wants to eat that ginkgo medicinal 8 treasures duck you made, and also the calming incense, so he'll allow you to return. I shook my head. Lady Li raised her brow. Locked up in the temple for austerities, and you're still putting on airs? I smiled. That medicinal dish was indeed made by Chef Liu, and the medicinal incense was also made by the household physician. Zhao, is your brain muddled? My son is giving you a way out. Lady Li's sharp nails came at me, but I dodged, inheriting the title. The iron certificate with gold inscription, dear grandson Songyan selected as the crown prince's study companion. What wonderful days these are? I asked. How is any of this goodness even half related to me, Zhao Ying? How did you learn women's virtue? Her voice instantly became shrill. A woman takes her husband as heaven, takes her son as heaven. When they are well, that means you are well. I looked at Lady Li, whose face was already full of the ravages of time. Her name is Li Ruhua, the legitimate daughter of the Li family of Yuzhou. Yuzhou helped my father-in-law win battles, which earned the title of nobility for the Yingyuan Marquis estate. Clearly, she was father-in-law's benefactor. Clearly, she raised Song Zhuo at her knee so he could become the legitimate son and inherit the title. Yet she said her husband and son were her heaven. Seeing I didn't answer, Li Ruo raised her eyebrows and smiled. If you can't be the Marquise's wife, all your efforts over these years will go down the drain. Are you willing to accept that? I smiled. She was right. These 15 years, I've been like a scholar studying hard in a cold room. But I've long stopped caring about these things. One should look forward. The capital already lost need not be counted in the next calculation. So where is the unwillingness? After being driven out 7 years ago, I no longer personally attended to his meals and daily needs. Why bother tormenting myself by learning mother-in-law's disciplinary methods? That New Year's Eve when I returned to the residence, I forced myself to observe propriety and keep vigil at the ancestral hall until the next day. Immediately after, I burned with fever and lost all sense of the world. Yet Nanny Li knocked on my door in the middle of the night. The Marquis says on the 8th day there will be a grand banquet at the residence. You must manage it well and not lose face. I downed a bowl of pain-relieving and fever-reducing medicine and got up, enduring the pain in my lungs to prepare the entire residence's festivities. Song Zhuo was finally satisfied and allowed me to attend the banquet. I continued being the gentle, virtuous, uncontentious Marquise's wife. Song Zhuo and the Lai family couldn't find a single fault. A woman's world is an endless dark night, a mountain of knives and sea of fire. I should hide my edge and keep a low profile, plotting carefully. One day I will establish my own household and see the mid-spring of Zhongnan for myself. As for those medicinal dishes, fragrant powders, sachets and such that Song Zhuo took credit for, they were all made by the servants in the manor. Only the medicinal tea came from my own hands. I've grown medicinal herbs since childhood and know some folk remedies. That medicinal tea was real medicinal tea, but it conflicted with several ingredients in the calming incense. Regular use had contraceptive effects, and 7 years of this eventually led to true infertility. In these 7 years, the Marquise's manor had no new additions. When I loved Song Zhuo, I also cherished his illegitimate sons and daughters as half my own blood. When I stopped loving him, no one's children deserved to compete with my son. I was no longer the Ying who revered Song Zhuo like a deity, yet he still thought of himself as my god forever. After taking the risk to secretly do business with the Liang clan of Guizhou, I finally won Imperial concubine Liang's favor. She gifted me gold, gifted me fertile land, and even granted me authority over the Liang clan's money house. I had both money and power now. I even used my influence to have the emperor approve the law allowing women to establish independent households. After the divorce, I no longer needed to depend on anyone. A few days later, the winding stream banquet. Song Zhuo came to fetch me. All the harsh words said before seemed to count for nothing. He wore sky-blue official robes, a belt with 6-ring white jade clasps, standing tall before the temple, refined and polished, crisp and noble. Seeing me arrive, he said coolly, "You are the Marquise's wife. I will give you all the dignity you deserve." I laughed. Just how great a favor is this? Dignity, expecting me to toil like an ox or horse for a lifetime, yet never allowing me to be human, Song Zhuo called out. "Ah Ying." My footsteps paused. Apart from Madam and Miss Zhao, he rarely mentioned my name anymore. He continued, "These past 10 days without the medicinal dishes and lacking medicinal tea, I felt rather unaccustomed. Last night's spring snow reminded me of the times studying by the light of fireflies and snow." Song Zhuo's gaze met the morning light, falling upon me with a glimmering sparkle. He seemed deeply infatuated with me, yet his rigid, straight back displayed an air of condescension. I proceeded to board the luxurious carriage on my own. Song Zhuo, having lost face, said nothing more throughout the journey. In truth, even if he hadn't come, Imperial concubine Liang would have come to escort me into the palace. For a dignified Marquise household to divorce without the Emperor as witness, there would likely be endless troubles. The banquet was set up in the Imperial garden to appreciate the beauty of spring. Pavilions by the wind and water, winding streams for floating cups. Among the fluttering curtains and drapes, bells and tripods for feasting, nobles chatting and laughing, elegant and refined, yet not lacking in magnificent grandeur. When aristocratic families saw us, they came to flatter. "This banquet is arranged so elegantly. The Yingyuan Marquis manor truly knows how to handle affairs. Madam Song, we heard you ate only vegetables and prayed for blessings at Qingxi Temple. It must have been quite arduous." Still, the Marquis cherishes his wife, having a favored concubine from the household take over the banquet arrangements. Song Zhuo smiled in response, then lowered his head to whisper by my ear, "How about it, Ah Ying? Only the Marquise's wife is surrounded by such adoration like stars around the moon. Why do you still insist on being willful?" I glanced at him, then turned around to find the head eunuch Wang, to arrange seats for the Duke and Duchess of Ningguo. "Sister, the Marquis bringing you here is truly a great favor." Concubine Li stepped forward, deliberately cradling her belly that showed no signs of pregnancy. "Gong gong, now the Marquise's household matters are arranged by me. You don't need to listen to her." Eunuch Wang raised his eyebrows. "How this servant does things is not for a concubine like you who is not even in the family registry to order around. First time coming to the palace to help out, you'd better rein it in a bit." With that, he walked away with his head held high, followed by several young eunuchs who chuckled softly. Concubine Li could only glare at me resentfully. "Once my child is born, let's see if you can still sit steady in your position as the main wife." I looked her over with a smile. Oh, Concubine Li actually retreated somewhat hesitantly. The Imperial Consort and His Majesty arrived, and everyone hastily took their seats. I carefully picked at the dishes I had meticulously selected. In the future, it would be nearly impossible to eat palace food again. Braised shark fin, 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, cherry meat, Henian tribute wine, truly left a lingering fragrance on the lips and teeth. At the height of the banquet, His Majesty stopped the music and said, "Song Zhuo, I never knew before that my beloved minister was so magnanimous and broad-minded." Song Zhuo, seeing his name called, hurriedly stepped forward to bow. The emperor pointed at him and praised, "As a distinguished marquis, you were willing to write a divorce letter and set your wife free." Everyone in the waterside pavilion held their breath. Song Zhuo, standing in the center, froze in place. After a long while, he slowly raised his head, eyes full of disbelief. The sun set completely, and the bright moon began to rise. Palace maids came bearing lamps, and lanterns stretched for miles throughout the garden. Voices arose from all around, gazes burning. Song Zhuo's shoulders, straight as pine and cypress, trembled lightly, whether from anger or shock, who could tell? The emperor raised his cup and smiled. "I originally thought that a divorce in the Marquise's household is a major matter and should be carefully deliberated, but the imperial concubine is right, and moreover Marquis Song is so prudent and steady. Since he has stamped and submitted the divorce document, he must have thought it over for a long time." And since our dynasty allows women to establish independent households, we should make our stance clear to the world." The emperor beckoned with his hand. Eunuch Wang brought forth a gilded presentation tray. "Today, since my beloved minister is willing to set an example, I certainly approve of this divorce. Not only that, I bestow upon the Marquise's household a jade rouille, and bestow upon the Marquise's wife. No, bestow upon Lady Zhao Ying 100 taels of gold." I stepped forward with lotus steps and curtsied, neither boastful nor arrogant. "This young woman Zhao Ying thanks your majesty for your great grace." This scene is pure cinematic gold. Songjua thought he was humiliating her by publicly agreeing to the divorce, playing the magnanimous nobleman, while expecting her to crawl back. Instead, the emperor himself validates the divorce and calls her by her own name, Zhao Ying, not Lady Song. This is a massive deal in ancient times. She stripped away his title, his control, and his dignity in front of the entire imperial court. The look on Songjua's face when he realized his country wife had outmaneuvered him politically, priceless. He lost his wife and became a joke in the same breath. "Zhao Ying." A suppressed low roar burst from Songjua's mouth beside me. Under those wide sleeves, his hands like slender bamboo were clenched into tight fists, blue veins bulging on the back of his pale hands. I smiled as I looked back at him. Originally an elegant gentleman like distant mountains covered in snow, wasn't he now losing his composure and filled with uncontrollable rage? The noble families at the banquet exchanged bewildered glances with one another. Only heard His Majesty laugh heartily as he raised his cup. "Come, raise your cups." Immediately everyone put on smiles and hurriedly toasted, all saying, "Lord Song, what magnanimity. His Majesty has such foresight. Lady Zhao, what good fortune." Everyone crowded forward and separated us. Songjuo absent-mindedly dealt with various flattery. Through the surging crowd, his shocked and astonished gaze never left me. I calmly raised my cup and clinked glasses with each of the ladies with a smile. They spoke of good fortune with their mouths, but their eyes were full of pity, pitying that I had nothing to rely on in this life. My body like duckweed adrift. But they don't understand. His Majesty called me Lady Zhao Ying. I am no longer Lady Song, the Marquise's wife, or Song Zhao Shi. I now have my own name and surname. After finishing the wine cup, I added another, then another, drinking this fine wine freely, my heart full of joy. I, Zhao Ying, can ride the wind away, or drift with the water in the future. Either way, I'm free and unbound. Songjuo took advantage of a gap to pull me to the long corridor in the garden. The palace lanterns under the eaves were dim. He stared at me with eyes frozen like snow and frost, sneering coldly. "Zhao Ying, I never knew you had such great ability to pull off this kind of deception." His grip on my wrist tightened more and more, almost breaking it. I pulled my hand free and laughed mockingly. "Before you speak of deception, what crime and punishment befits one who fails to safeguard their official seal? Moreover, the seal is Lord Song's official seal, and the approval document was personally decreed by His Majesty. What exactly was stolen, and what day was switched? Once His Majesty spoke publicly, there was no room for negotiation regarding the divorce. Songjuo suddenly leaned closer, looking me up and down. "Zhao Ying, you're nothing but a farm girl. Why are you so scheming, so filthy? Who taught you this?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Do you really see me as just a foolish woman who lives by her husband's will? Songjuo, do you still remember what you said when you took me away?" Songjuo pressed his thin lips together but couldn't answer. I looked at him. "You said, 'A Ying is clever. If she had studied since childhood, she would surely have placed in the top 3 of the imperial examination. You also said you'd take me to see the mid-spring of Jiangnan and the vastness of the northern desert, wanting me to be free and unrestrained." He stood stunned for a long while. Suddenly his eyes flickered, as if remembering. The corners of Songjuo's eyes turned so red they looked transparent, as if bleeding tears that were about to overflow from his eyes. His lips trembled lightly as he forced himself to remain composed. "Since you remember all this, why are you still so heartlessly seeking divorce? I never punished or scolded you, and I transformed you from a farm girl into a marquise's wife. Isn't that enough? Zhao Ying, why are you so greedy and resentful?" I laughed behind my sleeve. At first, I foolishly wished he could treasure me like a precious pearl as he did when we were in the medicine garden. Later, I only hoped he would at least see me as a person. But in the end, I'm just an object called wife. Yet he said I was heartless and consumed by greed and anger. I couldn't help but laugh louder and louder. Songzhuo finally lost his composure, both angry and resentful, his face flushing red. Eunuch Wang shrieked, "Marquis Song, the emperor summons you." In the distance, a grand procession approached. It was the emperor accompanied by Imperial Consort, Liang enjoying the flowers. Songzhuo glanced at me, with indignation, reluctance, and unwillingness. He said, "You can still beg Imperial Consort Liang to rescind her order and not make a grave mistake." Then he straightened his appearance and strode away, following Song Zhuo's figure as he arrived before the imperial carriage. Beside them, Imperial Consort Liang in her purple magnificent robes gazed at me with profound meaning, like moonlight on water, amid a riot of blossoms. Those beautiful eyes shifted, her charm tinged with seasoned depth. The Empress had died years ago. She was now the most powerful woman in the Great Sheng. Beside her, a little girl with bangs tugged at her, giggling as she pointed at me. Imperial Consort Liang then showed a loving smile. This was the consort's only child, Princess Anu. Imperial Consort Liang had damaged her foundation when giving birth to the princess, and could bear no more children. She treasured the princess like a pearl, like a gem. When I was preparing medicinal meals to regulate Princess Anu's digestion, I mentioned the matter of establishing independent female households. I gently rubbed the princess's belly to aid digestion, casually saying, "If women can establish households, conduct business, and pay taxes, it would eliminate the Great Sheng's practice of belittling women." Then smiled gently. In the future, it wouldn't be impossible for a woman to inherit the orthodox lineage of Great Sheng. Impudent. Imperial concubine Liang softly reprimanded and dismissed me. But as a mother, one plans far ahead for one's child. This is a seed, a hope. Earlier this year, His Majesty approved the establishment of female household registration, curtsying to the imperial concubine from afar. I left. It was that same palace path paved with blue stone slabs, the octagonal palace lanterns, like stars in the Milky Way, lighting up this cold journey. This time, Songzhuo didn't walk ahead, and I didn't cry either. I walked for a long time, as if walking through all my 15 years of misplaced devotion, insignificance, and dead ends. Finally saw the palace gate. I took a deep breath. The bones in my entire body seemed to lighten by 5 qian. I was like a firefly trapped in a brocade pouch, illuminating others' books for 15 years. Now having flown out, with heaven and earth so vast, I could die without regret. Returning to the residence, I went into Lingxiang courtyard to rest. Mother-in-law Lady Li, leading a crowd of matrons and servants, charged forward menacingly, raising her hand for a slap. "Yar took it all on herself," Lady Li shouted loudly. "Someone, seize this shrew who wants a divorce for me." Before the servants could rush out, the guards behind me filed out. Each one was a black armor guard, wearing sabers and official hats. Everyone instantly fell silent as cicadas in winter. Stepping back half a pace, Lady Li clutched her chest in anger. You have such audacity. How dare you bring guards into the Marquise's residence?" I smiled faintly. "Madame Song Li, you jest. They're merely helpers sent by the imperial concubine to move some belongings for me." Li's hand holding the handkerchief trembled as she pointed at me, smiling through gritted teeth. "When you married into the Marquis manor with nothing, it was already an enormous favor. What could you possibly move?" I casually waved my hand in my light fur and loose sash. "You're then handed over a stack of account books," I said. "Li Ruhua, you've privately lent out usurious loans, totaling 10,000 taels, profiting 5,000 taels. Every transaction is recorded here." Li Ruhua's eyes widened. "You schemed against me." I smiled. "Schemed? You violated the current dynasty's laws. As a law-abiding citizen, I must tell the authorities everything I know." Li Ruhua thought she had me completely under her thumb, which is why she entrusted these secrets to me for this. I often had to stay up late doing the accounts. If there was even one mistake, she'd make me kneel in the Buddhist hall reciting scriptures all day. I raised my eyebrows and declared loudly, "Officials who engage in money lending shall receive 80 strokes and be stripped of their position. Li Ruhua, if this matter gets out, how will your precious Songzhuo save face? How will the Marquis manor save face?" The dim yellow lanterns on the eaves swayed in the wind. I smiled even more gently. I've managed these affairs for many years. How about you give me those 10 chests of dowry and the estate in Yuzhou? Consider it a parting gift for our mother-in-law and daughter-in-law bond of all these years. How about it? At this moment, Granny Li rushed forward, looking fierce and menacing as she tried to hit me. How audacious, such a shrewish woman. This old servant will teach you a good lesson for the old madam. Ah! Yer grabbed her old arm and fiercely slapped that wrinkled face repeatedly. You bag of old bones! On whose behalf are you teaching lessons? On whose behalf? Granny Li was so shocked she burst into tears. Ah! This old servant has overstepped. This old servant has overstepped. Those loud, resounding slaps not only struck Granny Li's face, but felt more like they were striking Li Rua's face. Li Rua's face was already flushed red with anger, yet she couldn't move. Yua released her grip. Granny Li covered her face with hands trembling like dry branches. Her daughter Qingru hurried over to support her. Mother, I already told you that girls' strength is unreasonably great. Upon seeing Yer's skills, the maids and servants all retreated several steps. I bent down near Lady Li's ear, whose face had turned purple with rage, and said, If you're unwilling, the Xuanjia guards are here. Shall we send a lawsuit to the authorities with a single paper? Lady Li's face turned white as paper. I asked, Li Ruhua, what do you choose? The next morning, word came early from the palace that the imperial edict would arrive at noon. I undid my married woman's bun, tied up my hair with a hairpin, and draped on a light blue robe. Songjue was already sitting in front of the main hall. Still in yesterday's official robes, his straight back slightly hunched, as if he had sat withered through the entire night. Songjue seemed lost in thought for a moment when he saw me, his fingertips constantly rubbing the gold-trimmed teacup. Zhao Ying, last night, I suddenly dreamed of that bowl of sugar water from 15 years ago. I lifted my eyelids to look at him. The brown sugar water I had intended to poison my family with. I had set aside a separate bowl for Songjue early on. He hadn't had sugar in a long time back then either, so he drank it rather hastily. While patting his back, I said goodbye to him, knowing I was going to kill myself. His eyes suddenly welled up with red, crying and begging me, Don't die, a Ying, I'll save you. 15 springs, summers, autumns, and winters have passed, yet he brings up that sincere devotion from back then. Does he deserve to? Zhao Ying, even if we really divorce, where could you go? Songjue's complexion paled several shades, actually showing signs of withered wood and dead branches. You and I have spent 15 years together. Your son is also in the manor. All your support is here. Where would you go? Those deep, dark, bright eyes showed some weary confusion. I said, I don't need support. From now on, I'll be my own master. At noon, the eunuch who announces imperial edicts came from the palace. When that shrill voice recited divorce granted, the last trace of color drained from Songjue's face. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, yet still maintained the dignity of a noble family's young master. But he still spoke to me in his usual commanding tone. Go beg His Majesty to retract the order now. There is still time. You should know, without the Marquis manor, you are nothing. I can also dismiss the rear courtyard for you. I took the imperial edict, my fingertips brushing over the exquisite dragon patterns on it, and nodded slightly. Away from the Marquis manor. I am Zhao Ying. I am a person. Isn't that enough? Away from the Marquis manor. I am Zhao Ying. I am a person. Isn't that enough? I turned to leave, but my sleeve was tightly grabbed by him. Songjue tore off that layer of noble pretense and roared, Do you hate me this much? Hate me enough to use becoming a lonely, solitary person to take revenge on me? I looked back, my gentle smile still graceful, but the words I spoke were like knives. My lord is too kind, revenge. Are you worthy? His body suddenly swayed. I gently withdrew my sleeve, my gaze sweeping over this vast Marquis manor that had trapped me for 15 years. Wait, if the Song family produces a divorced woman, what face will we have left? Lady Li came over, pulling Songyan along. Dear grandson, come quickly and look at your mother. How utterly treasonous. She wants to divorce your father, and she is bullying your grandmother, dear grandson. Songyan's face was handsome and calm as he steadily supported Li Ruhua, walking over with measured steps. Songjue walked in front of Songyan and said with feigned dignity, Yan, What grandmother said does make sense. The blue-robed youth took a step back and bowed to Song Zhuo and Lady Li with proper courtesy. Father, the emperor personally approved the divorce. The Marquis manor absolutely cannot go back on it. Now that concubine Li is young and beautiful, and with child there is no need to concern ourselves with Lady Zhao. As for my future, I will naturally take the imperial examinations and assist the crown prince well. Presumably there won't be any impact because of mother. Every sentence reasonable. Every sentence measured. Every sentence also fairly helping me. Song Zhuo was stunned, unable to utter a sound. In the end, losing his composure, he grabbed me and said, "No, Zhao Ying, no, from the moment you saved me. You have to stay with me for life. Even if His Majesty allows the divorce, I will still lock you in the deep courtyard of the Marquis manor." The Xuanjia guard strode forward. "The imperial concubine has said, Miss Zhao Ying must be escorted out of the manor." Song Zhuo was dazed, sternly rebuking. "I am the Marquis of Yingyuan. This is my family matter." The Xuanjia guard only glanced at him expressionlessly. "Your lordship's title is sheltered by your ancestors, but your official rank is merely 4th grade, which is actually 1 grade lower than this general's. Don't make this general report to His Majesty that you're defying the imperial decree." Song Zhuo, who held himself so noble, was livid with rage, yet didn't make a sound. Slap! Slap! I raised my hand and fiercely slapped Song Zhuo twice, his face cold as jade, flushed red, utterly shocked. I said coldly, "You and I were married for 15 years. You took me away from home, I served the entire household, we're even. But come to think of it, you ultimately owe me a life. Consider these 2 slaps as repayment." As I turned around, I realized my cheeks were moist. You and I from now on, under vast skies and long waters, each to our own spring. I walked slowly out the manor gate and got on the carriage. Finally, I turned my head to look at Song Yan. He was coaxing Lady Li inside. "Why don't I go back and recite a few poems for you, grandmother, to help you calm down?" Li Ruhua was reluctantly led away by Song Yan. As the young man's figure was about to disappear beyond the ornamental gate, he glanced back at me. His gaze was burning. Leaving the Yingyuan Marquis manor was my son, and I tacitly going our separate ways. Song Yan had been very much like me in my childhood since he was little, climbing trees to catch birds, mischievous and playful, carefree and unrestrained. He wasn't well liked by anyone in the manor. 7 years ago, the favored concubine Liu spoke ill of me in front of 7-year-old Song Yan. Song Yan was so angry he lunged forward and scratched the concubine. For the first time, I exercised the authority of the main wife and punished concubine Liu, who was supposed to serve Song Zhuo that night by sending her to the Buddhist hall for reflection. Because of this, Song Zhuo drove me out to the manor gates, and Song Yan was sent to the old madam's courtyard. Under the long corridor in the 12th lunar month, day after day, he stood properly facing the wind and snow, not allowed to enter the room to warm himself by the fire until Lady Li nodded approval. One night, he snuck out to see me. His hands were covered in chilblains, his ears swollen, and his knees had bloody scabs from being punished by kneeling. Seeing that I was still ill, he, who was always cheerful, suddenly burst into sobs, limping as he threw himself by my bedside. My heart ached as if a piece had been carved out. I held his mottled hands and instructed him, "Song Yan, if you want a better life for yourself in the future, then curry favor with your grandmother and your father. Your mother will always worry about you. But we must proceed slowly and carefully, and must not act recklessly and willfully like before." He listened and took it to heart. Even though tears streamed down his face like rain and his face flushed red, he gritted his teeth and didn't make another sound. After that, we both tacitly agreed not to show affection in front of others. Song Yan, who used to be impulsive and cheerful, became quiet and reserved, following all the rules, finally winning the favor of Lady Li and Song Zhuo. I curried favor with the weak Lady He of Duke Ningguo's household. Before long, a great scholar from her maternal family happened to encounter Song Yan at a temple, and having formed a connection, came to our residence to teach. Half a year before the selection of the Crown Prince's study companion, the Imperial Consort had already introduced Song Yan to the Crown Prince. As his mother, I too planned far ahead for him. Since Song Yan couldn't receive genuine parental love from his father and grandmother, then he would have to step on the Marquis residence's threshold, climb the Jade steps and golden stairs, and soar straight up to those 90,000 li. This year on his birthday, Songyan ran into my courtyard. I was just about to say, "Don't let anyone see." Songyan's eyes were already filled with tears of excitement, and it took him a long while before he could speak. "Mother," the crown prince intervened, and His Majesty finally approved the political proposal from the Liang clan of Guizhou. Women are now permitted to establish independent households. I drank several cups of cold tea before I could recover. Songyan showed a sincere smile and slowly knelt down on one knee before me. He gazed up at me with childlike adoration, tears suddenly sliding down the young man's cheeks. His clear voice trembled. "Mother, you can leave now. You can walk out of the Marquis Manor with your head held high." After saying this, his hand trembled for a long while before carefully grasping mine. It had been a long time since he and I had been close. The intricate window lattice fragmented the dusk, casting shadows between him and me. The young man's eyes were as brilliant as the sun and moon. He was the one who loved me most in this life. "I am not crying. You are crying." For years, we thought her son Songyan had become cold and distant, corrupted by the grandmother who stole him away. But in this beautiful, heartbreaking reveal, we learn it was all an act. This boy endured years of loneliness and strict discipline, pretending not to care about his mother just so he could gain enough power to protect her. He played the dutiful grandson perfectly until the moment he could say, "Mother, you can leave now." He didn't just want to be the heir, he wanted to set her free. This mother-son duo played the entire Marquis household like a fiddle. I kept wiping away my tears with my sleeve. No matter what, I couldn't wipe them all away. In the end, I gripped his hand in return, sobbing softly. He had his own path ahead. I also had my own road to travel. This bond of mother and son, we would now each go our separate ways. That carriage, under the arrangements of the Liang clan of Guizhou, evaded prying eyes and headed south all the way, finally settling in Zhongnan. That place was the property of Imperial Consort, Liang's maternal family, requiring me to help manage it. The Liang clan all strongly supported the eldest son and legitimate grandson. I had to help her secure a foothold. What she guarded against was fading beauty and waning favor, being cast aside by the family. Once everything became familiar, I spread word of Auntie Li's adultery to Li Rua, and also threatened to take a piece of farmland in Zhongnan. Money was a small matter. The main thing was to keep her from having peace. The Li clan of Yuzhou was also her domain. Niece Li Qinger was far along in her pregnancy, making it difficult to abort. Once that child is born, Li Rua's reputation will be trampled into the mud. How could she not be terrified? Songyan sent a letter, sending regards and reporting his safety. He mentioned that Song Zhuo kept sending people to inquire about my whereabouts, and often drank himself unconscious in my room. Once his drinking delayed important matters, and he lost decorum before the palace hall, resulting in his transfer to garrison the northern desert, making his life much harder. But my life truly became joyful. I bought a small courtyard with 3 sections front to back. I had Yar as a loyal servant, as well as several capable manservants and maids. When the great heat arrived, I had Yar buy ice, make ice cream, and cut watermelons. When autumn came, I sent people to gather osmanthus flowers, brew rice wine, and steam osmanthus cakes. When the start of winter arrived, I had people pickle vegetables, warm wine, and read storybooks by the fire every day, living joyfully like this. In the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve. That concubine, Liur, whom I had sent away, brought me a steamer of dumplings through the light snow. She brushed the stray hair by her temples, smiling somewhat bashfully. "Mistress, Lady Zhao looks to be in the prime of youth. Perhaps these days have been extremely pleasant for you." Liur's face at 25 already showed some weathering. Before leaving the Marquise's estate, she had suffered 3 years of bullying from concubine Li. And Song Zhuo, born of noble status and accustomed to indifference, naturally wouldn't offend a favored concubine for the sake of Liur, who was of servant origin. Liur had been pampered for several years, and after suddenly enduring such torment, she tried to jump into a well. I saved her, sent her a plate of dumplings and a contract of indenture. She went thud-thud tow-towing 3 times. Her forehead swelled up red and echoed with each knock, tears and snot streaming down. "You're such a good person. Even after I acted so arrogantly under someone else's power before, you don't hate me, and even saved me." I never hated her. What is there to hate? If I had become a concubine back then, my situation would probably be the same. That divorce document stamped with Song Zhuo's official seal was secretly stamped by Liuer when she was intimately entangled with Song Zhuo in the study. If this matter is thoroughly investigated in the future, Liuer will have already been sent away, and Song Zhuo will have no way to trace it. I had Yer warm up some yellow wine and bring out the dongpo pork, sweet and sour fish, and crab soup dumplings that were prepared early. The three of us ate, drank, and enjoyed the falling snow. Snow in Jiangnan melts away once it touches the ground. Unlike in the capital where it falls and falls until the snow is deep, it is as if the past 15 years have dissipated just like that. I no longer have to endure the wind and snow, no longer have to suffer contempt, no longer have to be treated as an object. I am Zhao Ying. I am a woman. I am a person. We drank until we were too drunk to speak clearly, then rolled up in our bedding and nestled on the couch, never again having to keep vigil until dawn for a whole ancestral hall of ancestor tablets that aren't even my own relatives. Once the first month passes, it is the start of spring day after day, spring after spring. By the year I turned 35, Song Yan passed the imperial examination and ranked in the 3rd tier. Li Ruwa had long since passed away, dying as thin as a skeleton, and Song Zhuo fell ill and never recovered. Only because he, who had finally been restored to his original position, learned that his youngest son was not his biological child. I had specifically spent a fortune hiring a tutor for that youngest son, which gradually won Song Zhuo's favor. Only when love runs deep does one know suffering. When this scandal was first exposed, Li Qinger burst into laughter. She pointed at Song Zhuo and cursed. If it weren't for you looking good but being useless, unable to have children, why would I need to borrow seed? You incompetent man, what are you pretending to be so noble and vigorous for? Later he was ill for several days, then suddenly became unable to move. Song Yan wrote to me. Song Zhuo constantly mutters my name, and always says if only he could start over with me. Start over, I've already been reborn and am living beautifully on the day Song Zhuo died. Jin Yushuan as usual sent over the 10 finest jewelry pieces each month for me to choose from. That day the spring sun was bright, and the fragrant grass lush. In the gilded plate, a piece of white jade, flawlessly pure and glowing with a warm luster, immediately caught my eye. When I picked up the jade pendant, my fingertips still trembled slightly. The character Song was carved on it. This was the ancestral jade pendant Song Zhuo had pawned when he took me away from home years ago. Song Zhuo used to cherish it and play with it in his palm, saying it was what his father left him before dying. Later, he pawned it to save me, after going round and round. This jade piece has returned to my hands. Truth be told, if it weren't for Song Zhuo, I should have already entered the cycle of reincarnation. I wonder whether it would be male or female, suffering or joy, sorrow or happiness. Today, the spring light is too lovely, the spring scenery too beautiful. I'm so happy that I shed a tear. My darlings, let's take a deep breath. This story hits different because it deconstructs the Cinderella myth. Song Zhuo saved her from poverty, yes, but then he trapped her in a gilded cage and constantly reminded her that she was nothing without him. He loved being her savior, but he hated her being his equal. Zhao Ying's journey is a masterclass in silent resilience. She didn't scream, she didn't fight back openly. She lowered her head, learned the rules of their game better than they did, and systematically dismantled their power over her. She took their money, secured her son's future, ruined their reputation, and then walked out the door into a spring she built for herself. And the most satisfying part, Song Zhuo spent the rest of his short, miserable life realizing that he was the one who was nothing without her. He died regretting his arrogance while she lived her best life eating snacks by the fire in Jiangnan. The lesson, never let anyone tell you that your worth is tied to them. If a savior demands your submission as payment, they didn't save you and they bought you. Be like Zhao Ying, buy yourself back, keep the change, and leave them in the dust. Let's chat in the comments. The moral dilemma, was sterilizing her husband too far? Or was it a necessary move to protect her son in that cutthroat environment? Let's debate the son's sacrifice. Could you endure your child ignoring you for years if you knew it was for their own survival? That part broke me, the glow up. What is your dream post-breakup life? Are you moving to a cottage in the south to drink wine and read books like Zhao Ying? Because that is undeniably the vibe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a dose of historical tea. Stay free, stay fabulous, And remember, you are the main character of your own life. Love you all. Mwah!